Welcome to another lecture, youth educational project, Alive Nature, Alive Future, where we are working with young people, educating them about environmental issues, about ecology, about species diversity, and also encouraging them to become active, to defend nature, to protect environment, and besides focusing on local issues, on local species, a large part of our project is seeing the interconnections between the local and more global happenings and what's the word? Causes and effects. And for this, we have invited our special guest, Dr. Andriy Demydenko from Ukraine. He's a representative of Ukrainian Climate Office. And this lecture, for me, it's really something new, and I don't feel like I'm qualified even to talk about it. So I'm not going to make any other introductions. So welcome, Andriy. The stage is yours. Maybe you can start by also saying a few words about the video that we saw in the beginning.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. As Andriy mentioned, my name is Andriy Demydenko, and I'm not only represent Ukrainian Climate Office, but I also working for Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian environmental consulting company in Riga, but now I'm seconded to Kyiv, back to my native city. Really, the situation is getting some new terminology appears in this old sphere of nature protection. I will not go too much into details because I don't know very well your background. I will ask some questions at the beginning of lecture, and then we will go into details. And please don't hesitate to ask questions if you will not understand one or another terminology. By background, I'm a theoretical physicist. So for me, sometimes it's very difficult to explain to somebody who doesn't understand quantum mechanics the Schrödinger cat problem without using quantum mechanics semantics. But the same situation is with climate. And it was, Andriy mentioned very well. For example, one word which you could see in the resilience. What is resilience? The whole lecture will be about this. And protection of environment, protection of ecosystem, protection of species is not enough anymore. In addition to protection, you should what? You should build resilience of ecosystems. And this will be a lecture. And it will come to my attention not only because of climate. I'm representative of Ukraine in National Academy of Science of Ukraine in the so-called Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the highest scientific body of UN regarding climate change. So from climate point of view, resilience from climate change point of view, resilience to climate change is something important. In Ukraine, in addition, it's resilience to military actions. And most of this resilience is the same because its resilience is determined by nature, by environment where we live, by natural system, resilience of natural systems and resilience of human systems. This will be my lecture. And again, it will be not something fixed because it depends on the audience, how to say. Just to give an example, at the last session of IPCC, there was 6 report. Actually, the summary for policymakers was approved by all governments and it's one of the biggest UN bodies, almost 200 governments in this government panel. And it was very interesting discussion where I also participated. In the report, it was mentioned that according to nonlinear thermodynamics, this, and this. And I had to intervene and said, guys, I don't know how you in the West, but in my country, decision makers, they don't know even linear thermodynamics. And you propose them to something which is based on nonlinear thermodynamics. And they will stop reading you. They will stop listening to you, and they will see this point. I will try to avoid such terminology, but sometimes I will use it and try to explain it. Sandris, you are going to say something?
Yes, you mentioned IPC.
Please.
IPCC is the Intergovernmental
Panel on Climate Change. Yeah.
It is like
the highest UN body, scientific UN body on climate change.
It's like the world's biggest organization, which is focusing on climate issues, right?
Yeah, intergovernmental. It is we experts are not representing themselves there. There are somebody who works for IPCC, but those who bring to the go to meetings, they represent government nominated experts from each country, and these experts approve or not approve some reports. The last report, 6th report, was important, and many new ideas came out of this report, particularly those summary for policymakers, which is relevant for Latvian government to the same extent as to any other 200 governments on the planet. And my task is to bring to my government and other governments the recommendation from this summary for policymakers in order to bring this message across. So if it's enough for the introduction, and let me ask you to show the first slide, please. And in order to understand the audience, I would like to ask the first question. What do you think? What is environmental security? Is it security of environment from people or safety of people from the environment? I don't see you all, and I can't say what somebody probably should say. Could you either in chat or in just this session, just raise hands. If somebody see you, we can calculate who is for the first option, raise hand or send one to the chat. Who is the second option, raise hand then, now, or send two to the chat. Ready? Okay. Raise hands who are for the first option. Oh, good. 1 and 2. No, it's not. It's not an answer. It should not be 1 and 2 simultaneously. Either 1 or 2. Choose, please. 1 plus 2. Right? Good. It's interesting, but 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. 1, 1. Okay. More or less 50-50, but 1 and 2 is not acceptable because either 1 or 2, choose, please. Mainly 1, but some say 2. Good. I will not go too much into details now. We will come to this question later. And now, please, second slide. And the second slide, which is more difficult to answer, and I would like to say, have you ever heard about the word sustainable development? Hopefully you do, because you are dealing with it. And the idea about sustainable development, the first definition of sustainable development was proposed by so-called Gro Harlem Brundtland report in 1987, many years ago. But by that time, I was already a theoretical physicist, and it came to my mind in the Soviet time. And from that time, I am interested in development. I was dealing with development as a physicist, but in sustainable development in particular. This definition became very famous. It was discussed at several UN summits, including summit in Rio de Janeiro, in Johannesburg, and afterwards. And the definition is still the same, but not all governments, not all scientists accept this definition. And that's why I will ask you the second question. And again, don't use 1 + 2. Don't raise your hands because I couldn't see, but in the chat. I will read and then ask the question. Sustainable, according to this definition of the UN official definition, sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of present generation without compromising the ability or the right of future generation to meet their needs. If you are for the first option, but please think, because it's not that simple as the previous question, or for the second option, think and send in the chat either 1 or 2. Don't send 1 + 2. And I will follow then to the right. Okay, first I see. I think Sandris then later calculate correct figures. Now it's just 2, 1, 1, or 50-50. And this elephant too. This elephant is very good. Probably you know this story about the elephant, how blind people met elephant and trying to understand what is this. And there were many opinions. What is this elephant about? 2, 2. Again, that's 2 is more than 1. 2. Okay. 60-40 approximately as far as I see, but more people say that the right option 2 is proper. It's very interesting. And you are not a unique country. It's many countries. In some cases, people, especially not UN or government officials, they use the right. And the idea is that it's really an elephant. The first definition by Brundtland report 1987 was that the ability. But then many who are for human rights and human rights issue which is raised more and more times, that's appear. And I will show what is the difference what is the consequences if you will choose one or another option. And it is very interesting for me because I'm dealing with this for how many? For 40 years already, because with this definition. And I'm trying to convince my government that the first option was in UN report. But my government thinks, no, it was the right. I said, read, it is written. We don't care. We know better. Later, I was lucky. I was able to work in the first UN Commission on Sustainable Development in the beginning of 90s, right after Rio conference. And that's why I know these pictures about. And the definition of what was sustainability was that sustainability is actually the life between two boundaries. Minimum amount of resources is needed because lower than this medium you can't live because it will be poverty and starvation. No water, no food. And so you can't live if you have less than minimum of necessary resources. While there is an upper limit and about overconsumption. And from that point of view, the right is about right for minimum resources. And ability is about maximum unsustainable resources. Unfortunately, this understanding about that there are two different types of boundaries. One is ecological maximum, and one is social minimum, is not very well defined. All our discussion will be about if you will choose either one ability or right option, it will result in your policy, in your development policy, in sustainable or not sustainable and now resilient and climate and everything like this. Taking into account that the first discussion on sustainability took place in Rio in 1992, quite a long ago, but still discussions going on. Next slide, please. Okay, so I will cut the chat. What is the common between sustainable development and environmental security? I hope you know about this. I said about our common future. This is Brundtland report. Our common future is the economic. And then is this picture about these boundaries. And then this development, terminology of UN Commission on Sustainable Development was then tested in some different programs. Right after, at the time of the Rio 92 or Rio +10, one of the famous unsustainable situation was with the RLC. Probably you heard about RLC, which is disappearing. And the problem was discussion, why it disappears? Many local people who just consume this water or withdraw this water, they say, no, it's just natural. There was a sea, there was no sea. And others who say, no, guys, you are withdrawing too much, and that's why you drink this sea, probably. I will, again, I had some, I will later show you some pictures. For 5 years, I was UN RLC program manager for UNDP. And that's why, for me, it was the first opportunity to apply all this methodology in order to answer the question, why sea is disappearing? Later, just a couple of years ago, there was a very interesting publication about planetary boundaries. A group of scientists, mainly from Potsdam Institute or in Berlin, near Berlin, and some other laboratories, they put forward some ideas of planetary boundaries. I hope you have heard about this. I will have some more pictures and we'll describe it in more details. Here I will just say why this came into some discussion. And then happens this 6th report of IPCC. The first picture, no, come back. Planetary boundaries a little bit later. But what this report said very much important. Then unfortunately, all our attempts to reach sustainable development failed. And probably it will not be possible to reach sustainable development. Why? I will tell later. Because development is going in the opposite direction to sustainable development. And the last chance is to switch from sustainable development to climate resilient. And this window of opportunity to switch from one type of development to another one, to climate resilient development, is going to be closed soon, this window of opportunity. Remember this conclusion, I will come to it later. And also there is a picture of very interesting tipping points. I will use tipping points, but actually in nonlinear thermodynamics, it's used bifurcation points. But probably you don't know, who knows what nonlinear thermodynamics is? Probably nobody. That's why I will not use bifurcation points. I will come back to this nice picture because it's very much important. It's from UN Secretary General, some publication. I will go too much in details. Here are just steps which are important to understand for the further lectures and some questions. Now, please, the next slide. These are these planetary boundaries. The idea of these planetary boundaries is published a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago, in Nature and in Science, in the most thing. This group of scientists that for 9 different directions, for 9 different resources, planetary boundaries are transgressed for 7 of them. Here is 6, but now it's for 7. What does it mean transgressed? It means that there is some safe operating space of using one of these 9 resources, which is green. And then it's going more to brown, where it means that this scientist said that it's transgressed. Look at this picture. You see that biosphere issues are the most dangerous. Biochemical, flows for soil is also quite dangerous. While stratospheric ozone depletion is not that problem, so it means that our efforts to decrease ozone gave some results, and now these boundaries were transgressed, and now they came back to green area. My area is water, and freshwater use, blue and green, are also transgressed, not to the extent. This is very much important conclusion, which is not accepted by everybody, but this is the cream of the cream of science now. And it is the answer why 6th report of IPCC said that our way to sustainable development is we are moving in the opposite direction, because we are going to next slide. Could you say next slide, please?
I wanted to ask, does this is this from like most recent years?
Like, no, it's publication from 2005. Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering.
2025. It's very. I could send you all references. It was in Nature. It was in Science. It was in the first publication. Could you send this?
I was surprised that ocean acidification also is illustrated as safe situation.
Now it is a 7.1, which is now transgressed. So this is publication. I will show you. Yeah, you're good that you understand this. Now, if you count these 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and the 7th is ocean acidification, which now they think it's also transgressed. I will not go too much into details, but you were right. It is the 7th. And this is an answer again to this 6th report conclusion that we are moving in the direction opposite to sustainable development, because the situation is getting worse and seriously worse. Next slide, please. And now resilience a little bit. Could you show the next slide, and then we will come back to this slide, please. And next one. And next one. It is very much important on the right side, this picture. These are these transboundaries about 1970 and some until this and prediction for the future. You could see that these boundaries, it is modeled. It's not measured. It's modeled. And you could see the difference, how it's going on. We will come back to this issue a little bit later, but I was going to show you that really we are moving in the totally opposite direction to sustainable development. So 6th report of IPCC was right. What to do? Now come back, please, several slides back to this, back. Stop here. Why the word resilience appeared? Because as I mentioned, the 6th report said that now we should switch from sustainable development to climate resilient development. What is resilience and why it's important? It came to my, again, I am a lucky person, even before approximately the time when this Brundtland report was published, I start dealing with the so-called group of, with the Club of Rome, with a group of, which published Limits to Growth publication. Have you ever heard about Limits to Growth publication? Nobody, yeah? It is a book, Limits to Growth. It was published in 1972. It was a group of scientists. Sorry, I can't understand what is written in this. It's in Latvian. But probably, you know, it was not for me, as far as I understand. If anybody knows about limits to growth, I would say, but actually it was a group of people who start dealing with dynamic theory. And they predicted that in the right corner, there is some prediction how resources will be developed. The resources are limited and then they will be depleted, how some population, how some other things. And this report was sent to Rio 92. And again, for me, it was very interesting because I participated. Dennis Meadows is one of author of this report. Dennis and his wife, Tonella. Tonella died right after this, but Dennis is still alive. And I was at this mechanism because I'm theoretical physicist. I was dealing with dynamic theories and with kinetic theories and something like this. For me, it was very interesting as a scientist. But then when they tried to present this to audience, to Rio 92 conference, saying that they were heavily criticized. People say, no, we don't believe it, no problem. Economy will match it somehow. I will not go too much into details, but it was very much important about application of these dynamics to forecast of what will be with resources. Do you remember these planetary boundaries? It was predicted by this dynamic theory, but nobody believed it in 1972, nobody believed it in 1992, and in now also. I succeeded to apply some of this theory for the Aral Sea, and it was very interesting. You could see some picture. It was very simple. We start calculating, for example, could you see some graph about it is the total amount of water going by two rivers to the Aral Sea, and then this is a withdrawal of water. And you could see that it was growing very fast because it was time in Soviet Union where Soviet Union decided to grow cotton. Very, very big territories. The cotton needs water, and they withdraw all water for irrigation. And then when we publish this calculation and say, guys, you could see that this is how was shrinking the Aral Sea and how water was almost, you start withdrawing almost 100% of water by two rivers and so on. This publication was made in 2000, 2002. And by the way, it was not very well received because they said, no, it's something wrong. But I said, it's mathematics. It's very easy. And it's simple mathematics. It's not nonlinear thermodynamics. But still was not received very well by some countries. For example, Uzbekistan didn't accept it right now. Kazakhstan accepted. It's an interesting story, but separate story. But as a person who was involved in this, I can tell you the first, and we were talking to president. It was interesting. UN gives sometimes this opportunity. And in the right corner, it's another modeling. And this is nonlinear, and it's from UN Secretary General about modeling of our climate, of our biosphere, the whole global biosphere. The idea is that in Holocene, when there was no people, there were abundant of resources because all resources were available. Nobody was using it. It was just cycles, but nobody. Then Anthropocene started, but in the beginning of Anthropocene, people use small resources. Do you remember these planetary boundaries? Very, very far from planetary boundaries. And then people start using more and more and more, and at some extent, which is that picture where this true tractor. Good. It's exactly about 5 years update to limits to growth. But this picture is from UN Secretary General. All reference I could send then to Sandris if you will be interested in publications where it made from. And UN Secretary General used this and said, look, we are now at tipping point. We have two ways. Either we will start taking into account that we are transgressing boundaries, or we will go to hothouse Earth, or we will start be more climate resilient, and then we'll move to more stable, resilient world. And it is a very good picture to explain what is resilience. First, I will explain resilience with a very simple example of spring. You understand what is spring, yeah? Resilience and elasticity, упругость по-русски, could be, it's very well understandable that resilience is maximum when the spring is near the equilibrium point, far from boundaries, far from very big extension or very big tension. When it is in equilibrium, its resilience, its упругость is the maximum. When you are at high tension, your resilience is dropping to zero very quickly, or you're going to say. And it's dynamic, understand, it's quite clear. In terms of nonlinear, it's more difficult, but the same idea. When you are far from reaching resources, your resilience is big. When you are close to reaching, when you are close to the boundaries of resources, whatever, 9 these resources mentioned planetary boundaries, your resilience is going to zero very quickly and seems to collapse, which means we will drop, this whole system will be dropped to hothouse Earth. Or we will find the way, we are biosphere without us, will find the way to more resilient. This is the whole idea about resilience. That's why IPCC 6 report said that there is only one opportunity if we will find the way to go to the right, to more resilient, to more stable Earth. If we will miss this opportunity, and window is closing, so it's quite fast. It is a main message which, after the 6th report, which was published 3 years ago, we are trying, all of those who were involved, trying to bring to all audience, to Ukrainian authorities, to Latvian people, to whatever. It is my task. And this is a task for this lecture. That movie, which Sandris will show you later, it's about resilience, exactly about in ecosystems. But it could be not only about ecosystems. It could be, for example, resilience of infrastructure. It is, for example, resilience of infrastructure to floods. For example, if you have concrete infrastructure, it is more resilient to floods than wooden infrastructure. If you have it on piles, it will be more resilient to floods and something like this. With ecosystems, it's more difficult. Maybe it's good time to show now the movie. What do you think, Sandris? Or it will be after my lecture. What do you think?
After. It will be
After. I don't know what is noturiba, but resilience is упругость по-русски.
Yeah.
Elasticity.
Mm-hmm.
Its sensitivity is inversely proportional to elasticity. You understand, yeah? Why resilience or упругость важна? Because if you have упругость, you will not get been damaged. Because if something will press on you, you have some elasticity and you have some упругость, you have some resilience, and you could move. If your resilience is close to zero, you have no freedom, you will collapse. For example, it's a, do you know what's the difference with cast iron and the steel? Steel is resilient, it's elastic. Cast iron, no. It's very hard, but absolutely not, it could be ruined by some hammer. Steel not, because of elasticity. And it is maybe not the best example, especially in case of nonlinear thermodynamics. It's without temperature, because temperature provides some additional way, but just to explain this idea. That's why, and now the question, why sustainable development and resilience, as I mentioned, as 6 reports said of IPCC, that we are moving too close to boundaries. We are using too much resources, and even sometimes more than 100% available. It's an interesting story how. Like in the Aral Sea, because sea disappeared. There is no sea. And because all water was used, that means that we use 100% of water. Not we, but those who live in the Aral Sea basin. And it means that no way for resilience, no way for stable life. What to do? Transfer to climate resilient development. What does it mean? Next slide, please. It's about sea. You could see that is how sea disappeared. Now it's much more worse than in 2014. There is no sea. Next slide. If there will be question, I will then answer. This is big picture. Come back to this picture to when you will have question. Next slide, please. And this again about Dennis Meadows and the limits to growth prediction. 20-something years ago, or maybe not years ago, but 30 years, when you mentioned some 50 years, limits to growth 50 years, you could see these pictures. And dotted lines is prediction of World 3 from 1972. And these other lines are real development of these stories, which calculated approximately up to 2000 years. And it was published, not only in scientific papers in The Guardian and something like this, but even this publication didn't convince many people. They said, no, it's something wrong. That's next slide. The problem is how to make people believe in Cassandra. You remember this story. And now this is about what is the link between security and, do you remember this question? What is security, environmental security? Security of people from environment or environment from people? The best way to answer this question is to say causal links. Причинно-следственные связи. Who is influencing whom? And from that point of view, you should say, what is a reference object? What is security of whom security? Which security? What value is at risk? And security from whom or from what? And in this sense, environmental safety is safety of people from environment. Actually, it's human security, but sometimes it's used environmental security, understand like occupational safety and radiation safety. It means safety of people from radiation, safety of people from workplace. In case of environmental security, it is security of ecosystem, not security of people. And what is at risk is sustainability or even resilience. This is the main, and security from whom? From people, which is very difficult for many people to accept that they are those who cause this transboundary. Because answer from those is, but we have the right. We have the right to consume resources. Yes, you have the right to consume minimum. You don't have the right to consume maximum. And this is all this discussion still going on. But whether you build your environmental policy and development policy, sustainable or not sustainable, of your country, of your society, of your, community, whether on right concepts or ability concept of security, gives some very difficult results. I will use Ukrainian example, but you could convert it into your Latvian or whatever, any countries. I will give you some ideas how we do it in Ukraine, how I do it in Ukraine. Next slide, please. Okay, it's another explanation about maximum and minimum. Next slide. Oh, no. Back next, I forget to tell very much. It is very much understanding what laws we are talking about. Abilities is about laws of Mother Nature. Maximum level of ecological consumption level is determined by laws of Mother Nature. Minimum social limits are determined by laws of state laws. And it's quite big difference because there are different type of laws. Keep this in mind. Next slide. And these are definitions from Ukrainian legislation, which we inherited from Soviet time. And even now, when we don't like Russia so much, we don't want to change this approach in our legislation. And in many other countries, post-Soviet countries as well, I don't know Latvia, sorry, to that extent, it will be for your homework for you to check whether your law. Environmental security in Ukrainian law is defined in this way, that environmental security or safety actually is such a state of the environment in which the prevention of deterioration of ecological situation and the occurrence of danger to human health is ensured. The definition is from 1991, so it's from Soviet time, but still in all laws, and all attempts to change it fail. Moreover, Ukraine included in its constitution definitions that ensuring environmental security or safety is the duty of state. And everyone in Ukraine has the right to safe environment and health, environment safe for life and health, and has the right to compensation for damage caused by a violation of this right. So it's a purely right approach. There is no one word about ability to get these resources. It's only about rights. And this approach is then gives the very important consequences which are still valid. I'm afraid not only in Ukraine, in many other countries as well, but Latvian case is up to you to study. Tell me later which you found in your legislation. But now you're a member of EU. In EU is different, but probably you have to change it. But Ukraine is not a member of EU, and for Ukraine, it's a problem. Next slide, please. What are the consequences of this definition? One consequence is the so-called dichotomy of security-insecurity. If you remember this definition, that environmental security is a state of environment where there is some boundary between secure and insecure. There is some state where there is no danger, and then suddenly some danger. So a typical security-insecurity dichotomy. I hope you understand what it means, dichotomy, yeah? Andriy said that it's Latvian, it should be understood. По-русски это тоже дихотомия, но это на самом деле все по-гречески. Латынь. А нет, дихотомия это еще греческий. Sorry, I understand.
Pretnostatījums is one way in Latvian, like counter, like putting two things in opposite, kind of against one another.
Okay, good. It's like this. I could give you a good example about famous, it's not very, how to say, gender balanced approach, but it's an old anecdote about how blonde is answering the question, what is the probability to meet dinosaur at the street? And the blonde immediately answered, oh, it's very simple, 50-50. What do you mean? Either meet or not. It's a typical approach to dichotomy about 50-50. What are the consequences of such definition, which is Ukrainian definition of environmental security, which is security, either security or insecurity? First, it became zero-sum game between inspectors and polluters. Because when inspectors are looking for polluters and trying to get some money from them, there is a zero-sum game. Either they get some money from polluters, or polluters will not allow them. And then this money will be used somehow between polluters and inspectors, and no money will remain for environment to clean it. So this typical zero, which came from this security insecurity. The second, security and security dichotomy leads to the concept of so-called zero risk, when no risk of environment or environment impact is acceptable at all. So a zero risk approach, but without risk analysis, without assessment how big is impact, you can't build any assessment of damage, and you can't build any development program. Because if you have zero risk approach, no cost-benefit analysis is applicable, and no. It's the case in Ukraine in particular, because zero risk approach is still in our environment impact assessment law, in the law even. Next slide. And it's the great consequences, which is strongly, which it doesn't respond, how to say it, which is strongly against EU definition of environment impact assessment. And now Latvia is the same, because Latvia has to accept, how many years ago, European approach. And in Ukraine, it's even in some legal definitions. In Ukraine, it is still risk, and it will be a good question to you. What do you think risk is? Is it effect of uncertainty, or risk is the uncertainty of the effect? I will not ask again questions between you. And for example, the first one, when in Ukraine, when risk is uncertainty of effect, means that risk is just probability, like this blonde said, 50-50. While risk is not just probability. Risk is probability multiplied by impact. But if you have zero risk approach, if you have this definition like Ukraine provided about environmental security, there is no impact in the definition of risk. And there is next, how to say, consequence of this definition, which Ukraine made in 1991. As a result, in our civil protection code, it is mentioned that security is the absence of risk. It's explicitly mentioned like that, which gives you no opportunity. You can't build any development theory, because security means absence of risk. It means that close your eyes and then you secure everything. Second, in Ukrainian legislation, and it's still valid, environmental damage is assessed as economic damage to the state as a result of violation of environmental protection legislation. So it's the right approach, not ability approach, but right approach. Without evaluating physical damage to the environment. In Ukrainian laws, it is forbidden to assess damage to environment by assessment of damage to the environment. Damage to the environment is assessed as a damage to the economics. It's in the law. What is the result? That everybody, for example, in case of climate change, the answer is that the only one way to get rid of climate change is prevention. You should prevent emissions, and no other ways to reduce risk of climate change. While in the rest of the world, including IPCC report, you could decrease the risk by decreasing its impact, not only by decreasing its probability or likelihood. And the second option is, in case of Ukraine, is closed. And it's not only for Ukraine. If you will see reports to UNFCCC, it's UN Framework Convention to Climate Change, you will find that many countries don't believe that reducing impact is the way to reduce risk. Many countries think that reduction of emissions, CO2 mainly, is the only way to reduce. Do you see what's the way? And it's all came from this definition, what is environmental security. Environmental security, or even what is sustainable development, is the ability or the right. If it's the right, then you come to zero risk approach. Next slide, please. I hope I was not too much, how to say, and this is that message from a sixth report, There is a rapidly narrowing window of opportunity to enable climate resilient development. These are these ways, either in right direction or wrong direction. And this was, I was trying to explain to you with these examples with planetary boundaries and resilience building. Next slide, please. No, at the end, I made this explanation before, but now I could explain why IPCC about the transition to climate resilient development. Because IPCC said, next slide, I was mentioned these words, read it afterwards to repeat. This I also already mentioned. It will be when you will read this presentation. This is IPCC message to companies. Only simultaneous emission reductions and building resilience through environmental restoration can ensure sustainable development for all. It is a key message from IPCC 6 report. Only by reducing emissions, we will not achieve sustainable development. And planetary boundaries shows this, that it will not enough. The last opportunity is to do simultaneously reduction emissions, which means reduction likelihood of risk, and reducing impact by building resilience. If you build resilience, you will be able to withstand this pressure of climate change or of military actions, because in case of Ukraine, it's the same. Second important message from IPCC. Building resilience or adaptation reduces harm now. Tomorrow, if you will put everybody on the second floor of the buildings during flood, you will increase their resilience immediately. While reduction of emissions by mitigation will reduce risk in decades from now, which is greenwashing, saying that net zero by 2070. And so we should wait until 2070 doing nothing. Wrong message. And that's why this greenwashing picture is, governments don't like this picture very much. They prefer, of course, some greenwashing, including EU. EU Green Deal is purely greenwashing in that sense, unfortunately. But it's difficult to say this because the EU doesn't like when you say something like this. And now come back to your business. And nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based adaptation reduce harms most effectively efficiency. Even in case of floods, wetlands restoration reduce floods much more effectively than dams and other things and some others. Why? Now we'll have to ask question, do you know the name Barry Commoner? Anybody knows? No. Barry Commoner, no, but I am old guy. I really remember him. He issued very nice 4 laws of ecology. I will give it to you. But his third law was very simple because nature knows best. Very simple law. The first law is the first law of Barry Commoner. And this picture is from Barry Commoner book. We have met the enemy, and he is us. He said this in the 70s, last century. The first law of Barry Commoner, ecology law, is everything is connected to everything. Second law, everything should go somewhere. The third law, nature knows best. And the fourth law is everything costs something. Very simple, 4 laws. And now I use the third one, but you could use also. Next slide, please. And in case of Ukraine, it's just example, which I'm using now to talk to Ukrainian government. I said, guys, if you will keep measuring environmental damage by damage to economy, it will be totally in opposite to EU approach. And it will undermine your green recovery efforts, because you will not get a penny from European funds if you will keep this approach. It doesn't work. Ukrainian government still thinks that maybe we will have somehow, but it is the consequences. And where this main consequence came from this first definition. I was going, all my lecture is for Ukrainians, to explain that making this decision in 1991, you came to this conclusion, time to change it. When you will be part of EU, you will have to do it, whatever you like it or not, but maybe now time to think about it. What is the next slide? I don't remember, but I don't have arguments because it is the most, what to do, of course. Switch from dichotomy to risk management. I will not go too much into details to risk management, but if you have my last slide, I will, next slide, if you make this. Okay. This is a difficult picture, but all what I have said is mentioned here, that you could reduce risk by reducing hazard within mitigation cycle or by reducing impact in the adaptation cycle. But it is not that simple, because it is impact on natural systems, there is impact on human systems, and sensitivity and all the other things, which I will not go too much into details if you will not ask me, because I have special presentation about how to reduce risk. But I leave you this, my last, last slide for you. Then maybe you will have some other questions. And I don't know what Andriy will decide, but I think it's now time to see movie about resilience in ecosystems, which is not my movie, which is a movie from my favorite organization, which I also belong to, is Alliance for Global Water Adaptation. And then I will answer all questions, including questions regarding this way how to understand IPCC climate risk reduction formula. Thank you. Sandris, if you ready, please show this movie, and then I will be ready to answer questions. Thank you. And I just to finish that life is not linear. Returning back is not always the solution. And tipping points are about non-linear thermodynamics. And that's why transformation is not incremental adaptation, as it's mentioned, but transformation adaptation. You should simply come back. Good example from Ukraine again. As you know, Russians destroyed the Kakhovka Dam and the huge reservoir dumped into the sea. And now Ukrainians say, okay, it should be rebuilt. Wait. But it was built 70 years ago in another situation. Should we rebuild it now? Again, withdraw 18 cubic kilometers water from the river? We don't have it now. The situation is different. And so you shouldn't simply return back to previous conditions. You should, adaptation should be transformational. And this is a good example about different, what is sensitivity, what is resilience, what is transformational, what is buffering capacity, and something like this. I like this video very much. And now I am ready to answer questions. And I said to Andriy, if you have problem to ask me questions in English, you could ask questions in Russian as well. We are not using, of course, Russian language now for obvious reasons, but I still understand it.
Or in Latvian, and then we can translate it.
Okay, no, I can't answer in Latvian, but if the question will be in Russian, I will understand.
I thank you. Yeah, once again, I feel like I would say I understood okay, now from your lecture, of course, I understood much more, but before that, it felt like, wow, this is a slightly alien language, how to even talk about it, like this systems approach. But of course, it makes so much sense, especially you also sent me an article about freshwater systems and how it is so fundamental for life, like all kinds of interactions, like in all the levels, and how it's important to put our focus in it if we care about biodiversity, about life in general. And it is not so common, and probably it's also not so easy to communicate it because it might seem quite abstract. It was not a question, but rather a reflection.
I see. That's why I use this spring example. It's even politicians understand it. But life is more difficult than some dynamic spring.
There is a comment in the chat from Raivo saying, thank you, Andriy, for this very valuable presentation. Some of the slides reminded me of this Kenneth Boulding quote, anyone who believes in indefinite growth on a physically finite planet is either mad or an economist.
It's very good. I already put good. It's about when I became manager of the UN RLC program, and we worked together with other projects, but because of UN hierarchy, World Bank was a part of ours. And I'm not economist. And that's just those economists. I was asking some question, and then finally World Bank economists start saying to me, oh, that's Andriy who will ask this question about 150%. I said, my favorite question, I said, guys, according to your economic theory, you could, what is the price of 150% of water? In your theory, it could be a question. But in reality, there is no 150%. There is only 100%. But your theory is working even with 150%. For me, as a physicist, it's nonsense, exactly as this Raivo Ivulans mentioned. And I asked this question, and World Bank scientists, they smile, but still use this theory. And now they still use this theory. They look at the fossil fuel prices. They think that market will help this, but still the same. Nothing changed. And they will smile, but keep using this in indefinite growth on a physically finite plan. For me, as a physicist, it was absolutely clear even when I finished the school. But now my PhD was 43 years ago, and it didn't help. So economists still think in the same way, not only in Ukraine, in the World Bank as well. Well, and that's why I put this believe in Cassandra. It was very interesting in this. You could, by the way, go to Amazon and just go this believe in Cassandra. It is a nice guy, Alan Atkinson, who wrote this book. We were together with the seminars of Dennis Meadows, 30 city 5 years ago, almost 40 years ago. And we discussed why, you know the story about Cassandra, probably. It was this lady who just, Apollo just was going to. Yeah. But then she agreed first and then disagreed to love him. And Apollo said Apollo gave her a gift, but then added some gift of forecasting the future, to see the future. But then he added some kinds and said, okay, you will be able to forecast, but nobody will believe it. And finally, Cassandra finished. But how to make people believe in Cassandra? It is the whole book. He is a rock guitarist by that time. I'm a theoretical physicist. But we had for this book, read this book. It's available on Amazon. How to make people believe Cassandra. It was written 40 years ago, and still the problem. I saw Alan a year ago and just asked him, Alan, he said it's still the same problem. I like Raivo mentioned, the same problem. You can't explain World Bank economists that for finite planet, indefinite laws, indefinite theories don't work.
We are still, of course, open for questions from others, but while we are waiting for them, this topic that you were talking already about, and Raivo, it came to my mind when you mentioned like the situation with the water in the river. If it's gone, we cannot really like rebuild it back in the same way as it was before, and we kind of overconsumed it, maybe in a catastrophic way, because there was some, for example, explosion at the dam, right, Kakhovka and so on. But for me, this connected back to this question about ability or right, because sometimes the ability is impossible to get back. We can have right, meaning that if there is a chance, we need to provide this, or we at least have the moral or political responsibility to constantly keep it as a priority. But we cannot guarantee the ability, because the ability sometimes is
Very good question.
Exploited.
Very good question. It's exactly why I start with the first question, ability or right. Very good example with the US. In Europe, in Ukraine in particular, if you own the land, you don't own the water. But in US, it's the opposite one. If you own the land, you own the water, groundwater. And it is a big difference for lawyers. But why they have the right? It's wrong. You shouldn't have. Look at what President of the United States doing now. He ruined all climate science because he would like to have this fossil fuel power. That's it. So it's about, do you know what Rudyard Kipling say about water? It's a famous, he was asked about water. He said, no. Water is not for drinking. It's whiskey for drinking. And water is to fight for. He said this when he was in India.
Yeah, that's another issue about like privatizing natural resources. For example, like there are more and more companies who are taking ownership of drinking water all around the world.
Yeah.
When we imagine like oxygen as in comparison, that somebody might develop a machinery, some kind of invention that can suck out oxygen of the air and say like, we own it because we are able to like take it.
Exactly.
That's like
exactly. That's why I use this example from Ukrainian legislation and said, guys, you put this in the constitution. Why? And this is the consequences. What will you do now with this? They don't care, like President of the United States, who doesn't care, of course, about these consequences. But at least as a scientist, as a researcher, I put forward this question. And I'm very happy now that after 50 years in the Academy of Sciences, I have the right, thanks to GIZ, to ask this question in the Ukrainian climate office. They invite me as an advisor. I said, no, I can't be a manager. But as an advisor, of course, because I just responsible for my opinion. As a member of national delegation to IPCC 6 report, I just speak on behalf of IPCC report, which gives me power to say this. Whether they will take into account, whether your government, whether your people will take into account 6 IPCC report, it's up to you guys and up to Ukrainian society. As a scientist, I just deliver this message. And how will you use it? Nobody asking questions. It's really strange. How to turn it into a social issue.
Yeah, how to like I just wanted to write it down in case somebody else has a more maybe urgent question now. But
No,
yeah,
no, but it's
my thinking and also related to this project
think
is
about these 2 boundaries. It's a lower boundary is a social limit, and the upper boundary is a ecological upper limit. And life is between these 2 limits. And these are 2 boundaries of sustainable development, which are 3: economic, social, and human. And environment, sorry. Economic, social, and social and human is the same. And this is the way how to answer this question. And Rio conference happened 92, I had how many? 30 something years ago. 35, almost 34. And but it didn't help. And 30 years after Rio conference, IPCC said, guys, we're moving in the wrong direction, opposite to sustainable development. It should be somehow some reaction. Not really. People are talking more about rights rather than about abilities. About laws. In my government, I'm joking with Ukrainian parliament. As Ukrainian, I can joke. You can't joke with Ukrainian, as the same as I can't joke with Latvian parliament. But I said in Ukrainian parliament, Ukrainian parliamentarians think that even Newton laws should be approved by Ukrainian parliament. If they are not approved, they don't work. They do believe in this, that without their approval, Newton laws will. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, so trying to bring your story, your lecture back to the aims of our project to encourage young people to become more active, protecting nature, defending like sustainable global lifestyle in general, and
resilient. Not sustainable is not enough.
Yes.
Resilient. And nature knows best. Nature-based solutions are the most cost-efficient solutions for building resilience. It is the main, why I'm repeating this, that Barry Commoner third law. Nature knows best. He didn't put it in, IPCC put it in some more sophisticated way. The nature-based solution, ecosystem-based, is the most cost-efficient way to build resilience. Better than many others.
Can we say that there is a overlap with like permaculture principles, like seeing how the world is, and instead of trying to remake the system completely according to our needs, but like, hey, how can we, with the least destruction, continue like creating
it's
food?
It's a good question about species, biodiversity. It doesn't say what species should be, whether it should be, diversity should be, because resilience is proportional to the diversity. As much species as possible, more species, more diversity, without prescription which species. It is not for us to decide. But what we could say, diversity. It should be as much species as possible. Then diversity, then resilience is bigger. Without saying which diversity, oak trees or some other trees. Diversity. And this is ecosystem approach. It is not that forest is not for forestry business. Forest is an ecosystem. And as ecosystem, it has much more dimensions than just forestry business. Unfortunately, business people don't like this approach.
Yeah, it's so common to hear and read the opinion of our question, like what is it good for us, like this weird species of insect in the forest or this, and we are so focused on seeing like the possible conflicts of interest, like with for example carnivores in the forest or some other animals, instead of seeing like what is the much more network like impact, and also the science, the understanding of what is the role of different species. It's so recent, so new. Only the last, let's say, 200 years we more or less start to understand it, right? And it's still, I think, is like that I don't know, the tip of the iceberg of understanding how important are many species that we are right now thinking that maybe not much importance.
Very good question from Laura. Oh, I don't know how to say your last name. Of course, our government is not saying, no, we would like back Kakhovka Dam. And for what reasons? Do you know how Ukrainian government calculated the damage from Kakhovka? They said that it was 18 cubic kilometers of water, and they charged it as an illegal withdrawal of water by Russians. And could you imagine how much money they would like to go charge Russians? And I said, why you would like to get money compensation from aggressor for 18 cubic kilometers of this water? It was not your water. Why you would like to charge for water? Maybe some Mother Nature could charge, but not Ukrainian government. It's the same approach that the question from Laura. What to do? Drink less, eat less. Don't use. Do you know how much the total composition of all reservoirs in Ukraine, in Dnieper River? There are 6 reservoirs. Is 30% more than the whole runoff of Dnieper River in dry year. While in all laws it's mentioned that not more than 30-40% of runoff you could withdraw. But in case of Ukraine, it's 30% more than the overall runoff in dry year. That's the same situation with RLC. If you withdraw 100% of runoff, you will have no sea. That's it, clear. But as RLC is closed sea, you could see Black Sea is not closed. You can't see this result. But the same, withdraw less. Oh, but we have the right. Where is the right? But it was built 70 years ago when people don't understand this. You were far from boundaries. Now it's time. And so what should we do? Drink less. But we need water. Fine, but there is no water.
Of course, drink less, not in a direct, literal sense.
Not direct, but in general, yes. For example,
choose food which consumes much less water than some other food, right? We can compare it.
It's, for example, with nuclear reactors in Ukraine. Nuclear reactors you can build not because of absence of something, uranium, but because there is no water for cooling. Very simple. I could go much into details. Very simple. There is no water for cooling. And nobody calculates this water in Ukraine. And it's not for drinking. For drinking is a small portion of water. I mean, withdrawal of water for cooling is a huge amount of water. But what to do? Calculate. The Kakhovka Dam was built in order to provide water for Crimea in 70-something years ago. And then Soviet Union decided to build Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the biggest one in Europe, just on the river and using the river as a cooling pond. It's a difficult story. But answering this question from Laura, there is one question I can need. It's too long to read. But just answering Laura, regarding the question, if you would like to ask some question, because I promised to Sandris, you could send the question to Sandris, and Sandris knows how to find me. I'm not making my, if you will Google Andriy Demydenko in one word at Google at gmail.com, you will find directly myself. Very simple, without dots between Andriy and Demydenko. I am one of the first user of Google by that time when there were dots between name and and surname. I promise to answer you. And even Chernobyl.
I can read the comment, right?
No, I can read as well. And I would say to say that for me personally about Chernobyl, could you imagine? I didn't say this, but my life has changed because after 1986, I stopped doing some my theoretical physics and switched to environment and other issues because of Chernobyl, of course. Not only me. That's why I started interested in sustainable development and other concepts. I still am a theoretical physicist, specialist in kinetics and nonlinear thermodynamics, but I try to apply to some simple things. Chernobyl, my first daughter was born in 1986. Could you imagine? And for me as a father, a physicist, living in Kiev next to Chernobyl, could you imagine? Okay, so again, if you don't, will come some nice questions will come to your mind afterwards. Don't hesitate to send it to Sandris or directly to me with my name. I don't make it secret. At Google, I will answer because now I have some obligations, and you are in charge of those who you taught. I forget how to say this Saint-Exupéry. My French is not good one.
Yeah, thank you once again. Thank you for everyone being here. We will have a recording so we can share it also with others interested. And yeah, as you said, we can send extra comments and questions to you directly. And yeah, maybe see you in Latvia in the next few months.
In June, if you will be able to see me in June. I will come back. My wife is still in Riga, so I will come back for vacations back to Riga.
We might organize some post-project meeting if you're interested, like in the nature somewhere in some nice place.
It will be Ligo. It will be good. I will celebrate Ligo in Latvia.
Wonderful.
Okay. See you.
Slava Ukraini!